Happy New Year, James.
Happy New Year to you. How are you?
Doing all right. All things considered, no complaints. We had a safe and relaxing break with family. I hope that was true for you and for all of our viewers.
Definitely had a good break and ready to hit the new year running.
All right. Well, speaking of hitting the new year running, let's just jump right in. Here in January, we are going to be focusing on self-awareness and developing accurate self-perception, which we're gonna talk a little bit about conceptually today, and then over the course of the month, we'll get into some self-perception prompts similar to what we've done in the past with other topics. And so to ground the conversation, we thought we would start with trying to help folks get a more concrete understanding of where they might actually focus their developing self-perception energy. Because on the surface level, if we speak with leaders, they'll typically be able to provide a definition of self-perception, and that exemplifies some degree of knowing. But as always, there can be a knowing and a doing gap. And so we thought, to the degree that we might help folks be able to close that a little bit, we'd take a bit of a deeper look at what self-perception is. But before we actually do that, do you want to maybe say just a couple of words at the high level about what self-perception is and why it's important?
Yeah, I think I think really this centers around the whole idea about answering the question of who am I as a leader, what's my identity as a leader, and excuse me, the importance, again, it's this kind of two level where we take that inner eye and we can turn around and look backwards at ourselves. And I think it's highly important in the idea that you can take care of yourself, right? If you identify as someone who, boy, I'm just going to gut this out, I'm just going to work ahead, I'm going to plow through this, and you don't take the time to perceive how you're feeling or how you're acting, or those sort of things, you don't have a great degree of self-perception. And so you need to actually have that. Again, we always talk about having that eye on a swivel, where you can self-perceive how you're thinking, acting, feeling about that way. But you also have to swivel that eye outward to say, how am I being perceived by others? And am I actually leading to, are my actions actually leading to the trust of others? And that's where I think self-perception is really the most beneficial, is understanding how my actions influence someone else. And so as we look at this idea of self-perception, I think it's kind of a hinge point in leadership. And as I've read about it and thought about it a lot more, the ability to sit back and reflect upon things also leads to a lot of growth, I think, in yourself. Like when I take an action and it leads to something in my organization, my school, that detracts from that, then I have to be perceptive enough to say, maybe that was the wrong action and what sort of led to that over time. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. And you and I have been talking about this next thought I'm going to share in the weeks leading up to the new year. But over the break, I was talking with my daughter's swim coach, and he was saying how he was really trying to focus on his ability to live in bullet time. And when he said it, at first I thought, wait, I kind of know what he's talking about, but I'm not 100% sure I'm catching the reference. And then about 2 seconds later, it clicked in that, just as you and I have been talking about those scenes in The Matrix before the new year, where Keanu Reeves' character slows everything down and he can watch the bullets, he can even catch one, stop them. That's what the swim coach was also referring to as part of his practice to really put that eye on the swivel, as you just described, right? That capacity to recognize that we can pause, slow things down, look at them before reacting. And that self-perception is really trying to sort of focus that bullet time on ourselves first, as a way to then be able to move out and engage with others, and similarly keep that eye on a swivel.
Yeah, interesting. I watched the Matrix trilogy with my two sons that were here over Christmas break with us. So
Yeah,
interesting that you mentioned that, because it's about being able to actually take enough time, slow yourself down, and actually look at how you're perceiving things and how others are perceiving things, which eventually leads to greater decisions, better decisions, that can enhance everybody. So
absolutely.
yeah, so as we look at this, I think our next point here is really to like where do you focus your self perception? How do you swivel that eye, and what point of view do you actually begin to take a look at?
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, this is fundamentally about answering that question of what is your identity? Who are you as a person, as a leader, to the degree that those two things may be different. And so there's three particular areas that I think we wanted to share with folks, which have to do with the notion of that which is embodied. And I'm just going to name these very quickly as an overview, and then maybe you'll go a little bit deeper in each one. And so within that embodied area, notions like emotions, patterns of behavior, thoughts and feelings come up. Then there's a conceptual aspect to self-perception that involves concepts like self-efficacy, which we've talked about in past videos, self-confidence, biases. Then there's also opportunities to focus self-perception with regard to one's character and virtues. So courage, humanity, justice, ideas like that. And then also wrapped around all of this is the recognition that one's culture and one's genetics certainly have an impact, probably to varying degrees for varying people, on the answer to this question of who am I?
Yeah, great overview. And so I think, again, where we begin to think about how do you pinpoint your own self perception. Again, there's a million constructs out there, but I think to simplify it down, if you think about the embodied piece, which we put at kind of the pinnacle, as you see, what I would really look at again are those thinking feeling patterns. Like when X happens, I always feel this, right? And we've talked about that in a lot of different ways. But again, what are the events and what are the emotions that come from that? And what's that interrelationship? I think that's a good way to think about our own self-perception. And again, does that turn into a pattern? When this happens, I always feel like this. And is that serving me well? Conceptually, you cannot go wrong with trying to understand your own beliefs. That is a place where we could spend hours upon hours for the rest of our lives trying to understand ourselves, but our self-perceptions about what we believe, and again how that drives particular actions, I think is especially important. When we look again at the whole idea of character and virtues, you have to really begin to pinpoint those areas of strength, right? A lot of places will say, hey, focus on your weaknesses. And I would say, focus on your strengths as a way to actually build upon those, continually build upon those. So certainly understanding your own local context, the culture in which you work, certainly is a way to be highly self-perceptive. But again, I just think those understanding the thinking, feeling beliefs, the beliefs in general, and then your own strengths are ways to self-perceive things. And if you can get a good handle on those and constantly analyze those, and are they leading you to the right actions, then I think you're becoming much more self-perceptive than you have been.
Yeah, great. So I think we can wrap up here, right? Where again, our intention today was to introduce the theme for the month, which is going to be self-awareness and self-perception, and to try to help folks very quickly, as always. We know you have very little time. Uh, Understand some concrete places where you can take your self-perception perhaps to the next level, and not get stuck in knowing what self-perception is, but lacking a structure that's accessible, easy to follow, that allows you to actually do something about advancing your self-perception, no matter how well developed it may be today. So that's where we're starting the month. We'll be back next week. with a follow-up next edition related to self-perception. We hope you all have a good week getting back into the rhythms and routines of the new year.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.